I'd like to call the Montague Township Board of Education meeting for Friday, Montague Township to order. It is 6:30 p.m. Roll call. Mr. Baumann.
Present.
Mr. Briscoe.
Here.
Mrs. Caramucci.
Here.
Ms. Crispin.
Here.
Mr. Underwood.
Here.
Mr. Tuford will not be able to attend this evening. He is currently under quarantine. Was not able to get adequate test results in time. I am present. Ms. Here, representatives. Everyone, please rise for the flag salute. Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America.
And to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
The mission of the Montague Township School District is to provide the best educational experience and opportunities resources allow in order to realize the potential of every child. In accordance with the New Jersey Sunshine Law, legal notice of this meeting has been posted on the official bulletin board of the school and advertised in the New Jersey Herald and the Sunday New Jersey Herald. Announcement of executive session. Be it resolved, the Montague Township Board of Education recess and proceed to executive session to discuss personnel matters and legal issues. Action may or may not be taken. I'll entertain a motion to open executive session at 6:32 p.m.
Motion.
Second.
Motion by Mr. Baumann, second by Mrs. Caramucci.
Before the vote, Mr. President, may I ask if the attorney will be present this evening?
Sorry.
May I ask if District Commitment will be present this evening?
He just stepped out of the room. He is present in the building.
Thank you.
Any other discussion? Hearing none, all in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries. Okay, I'd like to entertain a motion to close executive session at 7:50 PM.
So moved. Second.
Motion by Mr. Brisling, second by Mr. Ballmer. Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries. Entertain a motion to reopen the regular meeting at 7:50 PM.
Motion.
Second.
Motion by Mr. Ballmer, second by Ms. Scaramucci. Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Motion carries. CSA report.
So included in your packets, you had the self-evaluation and also provided to you was a copy of all abstentions and no votes for the board throughout this year. This has been something, again, I think we've kind of highlighted some of the, I think it was described as dysfunction that's occurred that we've had this year as far as meeting the requirements of the things that need to be done, and specifically meeting all of the requirements set forward by the state. The goals that were provided by the board, four that were finalized, were to finalize the send receive process, finalize the reopening plan, finalize all contracts, and establish the communications committee. So all four of those items have been completed by the board since they've been set. So I think we should have a motion to approve the completion of the district and superintendent goals for those four items tonight.
Mr. President, may I ask, with respect to the send receive, it's my understanding it's still with the Commissioner of Education's office.
But we have done everything that we can do to finalize that process until there's a determination from the commissioner's office. So in other words, our process was to do the analysis, make a decision, do the submission, and then follow through with that to the extent it was appropriate to do so. And it is in that vein. At this point, it is out of our hands, and therefore we have done everything we can to finalize the send receive, subject, of course, to further action in one direction or another, depending upon the commissioner's determination when and if they render such a determination.
The facilities upgrade, or at least the measurement of the system by Edison Energy, because of delays, has pushed this back to mid-January is when that's going to be conducted. There has been conversation that the Ed Law Center is looking at buildings that are significant in age and have the same kind of things that we have as far as questions about the filtration system. That is something that will keep you abreast as it moves forward. Right now it's kind of in its infancy, but that they are looking at buildings that meet certain criteria that would be concerning as far as students being able to come back and the health of those students. For our purpose, that means that there's probably going to be competition as far as services, being able to contract as far as any upgrades as this moves forward, because it's now becoming a larger statewide issue or concern. To address the facilities, we've talked about, again, what has previously occurred and what has been done. And unfortunately, Charlie's not here because, again, he's been here for the last 3 years as part of the facilities upgrades that we've had. We made the point the last couple meetings that there was $80,000 in capital reserve 4 years ago. That's roughly $2 million right now, and there were projects the board had put forward between the AC, the security measures, and the lighting, that these were priorities that were going to be, that these monies were going to be used even prior to the HVAC conversation that we were having. In the last 4 years, we've spent $1,085,141 in the last 4 years. In the 10 years prior, the district spent $598,736. So when you're talking about the maintenance and what the facilities have been, again, I like to refer back to what I was told when I first started in this district. The point that was made, I think repeatedly, was that we're a poor district. And my response was always, we're not a poor district, we spend our money poorly. And there's a big difference between those two things. With the ability to increase programs, which we have over the course of the last 4 years, with the facilities upgrades that have occurred, which is more than $1 million, with $2 million in capital reserve to be able to do that, we've not only seen huge improvements in that facilities, and still have more to.
So why do we need the buses?
Such as the HVAC, which is still a priority. We'll have that report hopefully by the beginning of February, and be able to identify at that point what other the things we are going to prioritize with those monies. But I think, again, if you're talking about 10 years worth of facilities being at under $600,000 and over $1 million in upgrades that we put in the last 4 years, that's pretty substantial difference in the prioritizing of the facilities. The food service program. So at the last meeting, the decision was that we were going to provide delivery upon hiring someone to the free and reduced students, and that we were going to continue the grab and go program, which has obviously been something we've now been discussing for months.
Outdated food.
The New Jersey Department of Ag has reached out and said that that is not permissible to do one for one group of students and something for the other. So either you're going to have a grab and go, or you're going to have delivery,
That's weird.
but you're not going to be allowed to differentiate between one versus the other. So there's a decision to be made there as far as which direction we're going to go. I had said it at the beginning when you instituted this, that this was something that we were going to see a spike, obviously, because it was being talked about a lot, and that I anticipated this was going to fall off and that we were going to be looking at a loss. 87 students, I believe, is what we talked about at that first meeting when it was prioritized. The last two pickups were 13 and 27, which means when you're looking at close to 90 meals being ordered, and the loss between that and 13, BA is anticipating that that's going to be a significant loss for us. Is in the neighborhood, if that continued over the next months, roughly the $40,000 that we discussed for food that's not getting to people based on the pickup. In addition to that, with the new position, that's something that's going to be, an additional cost for us as far as this part-time position. We have not filled that position based on the follow-up to this as far as what the board would like to do, as far as whether you'd like to deliver or whether you'd like this to be grab and go. The current grab and go obviously does not require us to fill that part-time position. The delivery there would.
Mr. Capone, may I request that each of the members of the Board of Education receive a copy of that correspondence?
From the New Jersey Department of Ag?
Yes, sure. Thank you.
Just to follow up on this, again, Representative Gottheimer had weighed in on this and had encouraged us to hand out food to people other than the student, the parent, or the guardian. Since then, He has yet to respond because it was contrary to the guidance from the Department of Agriculture. He has yet to provide where his guidance comes from that contradicts that, and has not responded in over a month as far as his direction, which was in direct conflict with the Department of Agriculture. We have also not heard from the 3 local legislators that had co-signed the original the original letter stating that we're not adequately meeting those requirements. I don't know what you want to do as far as the, like I said, I think that if we're looking at the goals, the board has accomplished goals 1 through 4. They have been completed. Having a motion to approve that the district and corresponding superintendent goals have been completed, goals 1 through 4 for a motion. We talked about this again when the goals were being set as far as the long-term strategic plan. I know that we've had conversation as far as, again, what are we doing as far as these improvements? What are the long-term goals for the district? We have a long-range facility plan, which is currently approved with the state. As far as the steps forward that are going to be addressing those items, there hasn't been any direction as far as what items you'd like to tackle this spring, if any. And in addition to that, we have not identified any of those other priorities, whether they be instructional. We've completed the strategic plan, so we don't have any items. I know that Ms. Chrisman has brought up having our own cafeteria, having our own food services, in doing something like that. Again, there's a long-term plan that would need to be accomplished if that's going to be included as far as the long-range facility plan and the proper steps that would be needed to take to accomplish that as well.
So just informationally, I've made a notation under unfinished business to entertain such a motion.
Thank you.
Just had the copy from Don.
A copy of the
Right, so
discretionary policy.
Right, so the discretionary policy that you have, I think in the original policy, it named another district. They switched that to Montague, and they made one minor change on the staff meetings. And that was it. Again, it's a discretionary policy, not something that's required. Paul, as far as your language, you received guidance on that.
I did, but I still would like to see a vote, to move forward with a vote. I spent a lot of time on that. So
I'm not disputing that, I'm simply saying you received guidance on that. So there's nothing that I'm gonna add to that in reference to that.
There's no SBA report. Do we have any correspondence? No? Okay. No correspondence. I'll entertain a motion for approval of the minutes from November 23rd, 2020.
So moved. Second.
Motion by Mr. Brislin, second by Mr. Baumann. Any discussion? Hearing none. Mr. Baumann.
Yes.
Mr. Brislin.
Yes.
Ms. Caroline.
Yes.
Ms. Christman.
Yes.
Mr. Underwood.
Yeah.
Mr. Tuford. Oh, absent. Sorry. Forgot. And I'm yes. Sorry. Got on a roll. All right. Public session, agenda items only. Public comment is invited on all matters pertaining to the school district. All participants shall be permitted 4 minutes to speak and shall state their name, place of residence, and group affiliation if appropriate. Board meetings are a meeting of the board conducted in public, not a meeting of the public conducted in the presence of the board. The board uses the public comment period as an opportunity to listen to citizen concerns. But please be aware that not all issues brought to the board meeting will be resolved this evening. Rather, the board will, in appropriate cases, delegate the authority to investigate the matter to the superintendent or his designee. Please let the record reflect that the Board of Ed does not endorse your comments, nor will the Board of Ed be held liable for comments made by a staff member or other person, which that staff member or other person may consider defamatory and or libelous, as that individual retains all rights to pursue any legal remedies against you. Entertain a motion to open public comment at 8:05 p.m.
Motion.
Second.
Motion by Mr. Baume, second by Ms. Karamochi. Any discussion? Hearing none. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Public comment is open for board agenda items only. Anyone?
Denise Vogel, 228 Alchemy Ridge Road, Montague, New Jersey. I believe this would be the discretionary policy, possibly. It was the all-call system that Ms. Christman brought up at the last meeting without the A1.
Yes.
Okay. I wanted to congratulate the board. Last year, when your teachers received their notifications for Teacher of the Year and support personnel, it was put on the school website, pictures were produced, teachers receiving bouquets. It was really beautifully done. This year, however, the all-call system was misused in order to announce who those winners were instead of using the school website. That, I feel, is complete misuse of the system. It costs money to use that system. If I'm absolutely incorrect, please correct me on that. But that should not have been done. Plus, I really feel strongly that a board member should not have been singled out and basically whiplashed for making a motion. Thank you.
I agree. I feel the same exact way she does, and I don't need to use a microphone.
Right ahead.
You can point out people.
Sir, you need, sir, you need to identify yourself by name and address. Sorry?
Jane Wilson.
Thank you.
And I feel the same way she does. Then the emergency call is, the all-call is for emergency situations for the school district. You know what I mean? And we have websites, multiple websites that you could have done that on. Maybe you're not accepting on all of them. But, you know, to point out one person, and then like she said, whiplash that person, that's not cool. In any type of, you know what I mean, community, just wrong. I don't know what else to say. Nonsense.
Barbara Holstein, 127B on Rock Hill. And I'm going to remind this board, as you sit here, what is the last meeting for some of you. Your due diligence. The superintendent works for you. The superintendent works for the taxpayers of the school district. You're an elected person. He does not tell an elected official what to do, and he has no business calling out an elected official on the school website. This policy needs to be passed tonight. This policy says to this superintendent that he works for the school district, not for himself. And to have called out a board member after the backlash that took place in the spring when he called out board members. They are elected by the people to serve the people, not you, Mr. Capone. And it's astounding how you continue to ignore the public and other officials who have cited conduct unbecoming of you. Time after time again, people have tried to defend your actions here, and you continually do things as you did last night. An all call at 8 p.m. at night, under the guise of recommending or acknowledging the Teacher of the Year, as Ms. Vogel pointed out, has never been done before on the all call. None of us here are blind to why you did that. And I am very thankful that other people are here tonight to express their displeasure and disappointment in what you've done. If this policy isn't passed tonight, it will be taken up at the first board meeting after the new year. Thank you.
Any other public comment?
Yes. On Denise Bogle, 228 Chimney Ridge Road, Montague, New Jersey.
Okay, Ms. Vogel, just for future reference, you get on track.
Oh,
There's two public comments.
okay.
Okay, you only used about a minute, so I'll allow it in this instance because there's so few people here. But it's one crack, 4 minutes.
Okay, I just remember other board meetings you're at.
And prior to this year, that was the case. But for roughly the past year, it's been one, there's 2 executive sessions. You get to speak once for 4 minutes. It was a compromise. It used to be 3 minutes as many times as you went. And there were people who abused it.
Yeah.
So by board resolution, it was moved to be 1 at 4 minutes. Please proceed, sorry.
I believe Mr. Quinn gave some information, and I'm talking about F11, and if you could possibly discuss more of that, I guess as that motion comes up. On F11, that was the one where we talked, where it was resolved that you would have a third or 10 classrooms evaluated for the HVAC system in Pennsylvania. However, on November 9th meeting, the board gave unanimous decision to evaluate the complete building. And then on November 23rd meeting, you made this resolution. So I'm a little confused as to why you have 2 separate resolutions overlapping each other. One on November 9th, calling to evaluate the whole building, and then again on the 23rd, changing it to only the third. So if you can clarify that, I appreciate it. Thank you.
Any other public comment? I'm going to actually address what you just asked on as well. At the initial, there was a meeting at which the 1/3, the analysis of 1/3 was voted on. It was not passed. And in fact, I voted no. I voted no because I wanted the opportunity, if necessary, to bring it up again. The following meeting, there was a discussion about having the entire building evaluated. I don't recall specifically whether or not it actually passed that we were going to do that, or if that didn't pass. But the difficulty was that between that meeting where that was discussed and the following meeting, number one, we had not received, we received
There were no bids.
we received an estimate to do some stuff, but it was not the level of what we needed as far as even getting an estimate, number one. And a greater concern, at least from my perspective, was that I had received a pretty big tongue lashing regarding the inability of this board to come to some sort of plan. So at that last meeting, I reintroduced the getting the estimate of 1/3. It was frankly what was recommended by the county business administrator, who indicated that we needed, basically, we needed to do something. And then even if we did 1/3, then 1/3, then 1/3.
This way you wouldn't have to worry about a threshold, correct?
Sorry?
You wouldn't have to worry about a threshold.
And we didn't have to worry about a threshold later in the county, correct? So it was those various things, but that's why we're back to waiting on the 1/3 information, which we hopefully will have middle to end of January, early February.
Thank you.
Any other public or board comments regarding public comment? Hearing none, I'll entertain a motion to close public comment at 8:14 p.m. Motion.
Second.
Okay, I'm
Dale.
pretty sure Dale made it and Jen seconded it, is that correct? Okay, so motion by Mr. Bauma, second by Ms. Cavalucci. Apparently agreed to by Mr. Breslin. Sorry, Paul.
Thank you.
No, any other discussion? Hearing none, all in favor? Any opposed? Motion carries. Entertain a motion to block vote for approval items A1 to A3. Naturally, just looking at what these three things are, I'll defer to the board whether you want to do them separately. There's only three of them, so.
I would like to suggest we do them separately.
I'll second it.
Okay, we'll do it separately. We're not going to take a vote on that. So item A1.
Motion.
Second. Motion by Mr. Bauer, second by Mr. Gross. Any discussion? Okay, well, I understand the purpose of what was proposed. We had some discussions about this. I'm not comfortable with the language because I think it is too limited. And I understand that there may be mechanisms or wording or verbiage changes that we can do that would allow for some review prior to publication. A greater concern from my perspective is I think that adopting this policy puts the board in a situation where you're micromanaging and not doing policy at 30,000 feet. Rather, you're actually essentially doing work to run the district versus run an aspect of the district versus providing policy and ensuring that it's well run. Certainly, I can understand the criticism made tonight, made previously, and I understand where it's coming from, why it's coming. I have no problem with the criticism. I think that this proposed policy is too expensive in terms of the limits it was. That's my 2 cents.
I think in this day and age that, you know, this kind of policy should be on the books in some way, shape, or form. The only thing I think you could add to it, from other concerns I've heard, is like adding something they're saying for announcements for like PTA stuff, like fundraisers, you know, school fundraisers, that kind of stuff, to help promote it. You know, like you got a candy sale, you know, so other people know there's a candy sale, they can go buy candy. You know,
I appreciate that, and I understand what you're saying. My concern about trying to do it that way is there are so many non-emergency things that I don't think anybody on the board would disagree should be part of the notification system. Whether it be PTA things, whether it be, what, with COVID, there's nothing, right? But in a non-COVID world, there could be sporting activities, there could be holiday concerts, it could be any number of activities. You know, hey, reminder, the 8th grade is going on a field trip. None of that is permissible
I know the
under
PTA
this
is-
policy as written.
I know that the PTA is doing some stuff to my knowledge, I've seen it on their Facebook stuff, so, I think maybe there's been some confusion, as far as board members go, as to who is supposed to take the recommendations of changing the verbiage and bringing it to the table. I will be honest, I will not vote yes on the way that this is written. I don't have a problem voting on something that is a little bit more geared towards what I feel our needs and our communications are. And I think that we just had some miscommunication as to who's responsible for making the changes that we've discussed. So I don't know if this is a committee thing, if this is a one-person thing. Again, I'm not opposed to making some type of formal policy. I don't agree with everything that's written in here. I think there's a lot missing. So I'm not prepared to vote as it stands now. But I am prepared to discuss how we can get it to what we want it to say, present it so that everybody has a good feeling and it's collectively from the board what we want, and giving Mr. Capone the guidance and direction from the board and doing it that way. But as it stands now,
So table it.
The goalpost system has never been for only emergency use. That has never been the practice. So when you're talking about what the limitations are, and you're removing any informational items, and again, I think when we're talking about the history of this policy, okay, it's been brought up that this was brought up, right, in June, based on me addressing the fact that we had 3 votes not to renew the entire staff,
Stop beating this.
okay? 3 votes not to
Why can't it
renew
just
the
be a
entire
vote?
staff. That is a significant, okay, very significant,
It's so
based
hard.
on where it is that we were from
That's what the
a
website's
budget
for.
standpoint, okay, where it is that we were from the things that happened in the spring following the budget. In fact, the board didn't pass one, to 3 votes, okay, out of 7, to not bring back any staff members, okay? That is significant. That is something that I believe that the community should know. I do believe that that's something that is important information for parents as far as what is happening within the school. Okay, so you're talking about what the limitations are and trying to put something in place. I continue to go back and say, if this is the single motivating factor that we're talking about, that you felt you were called out on a vote that either you didn't understand what the ramifications were, you didn't realize it wasn't even legal, okay, should that vote have gone that direction, that there was nothing in that circumstance, okay, that would have led to something that was good for the district, good for the students, good for the staff, along those lines. That's significant. That is significant, and we've tried a number of different things, right, as far as making sure people are informed, okay? I'm gonna agree with you, and I'm gonna say this, okay? This is only coming up and being drug out for the last 6 months because of this policy, okay? Otherwise, it was something that was done, it was discussed, okay? There were comments made about it being a protest vote, okay? So you're gonna non-renew every contract in the district as a protest vote, okay? And so because of that,
Please stop it.
this is going to be something that we're gonna set a policy to try and control communications, okay? To try and limit communications on informational items. Because again, we've had conversations before about you do something and you don't understand the ramifications, whether it was the grab and go program, whether it was with transportation, whether it was with not passing a budget, whether it was voting no on renewing all staff contracts. So, I have encouraged individuals that if you have questions prior to board meetings, that you educate yourself, you ask prior to, so that you're prepared for the board meeting. I've told you that if you have follow-up or if you have questions about how things operate, if you've never been on a board before and you don't understand what your role is, okay, you don't understand what the limitations are, what the function of a board is, what your responsibilities are. We've gone over that numerous times. We've gone over school board ethics numerous times. We've gone over legal ramifications numerous times. This right here, again, if we change what the outcome was, okay, if this wasn't brought up, we wouldn't be still having this conversation, okay? It would be business as usual, okay, which is we use it for informational items that are important to people in the district, okay? Should you, if you are a board member who regret your vote or feel that in doing so that you were called out, okay, you certainly have the ability to substantiate, I made my vote because. I did this because I stand by my vote not to vote no on every staff member in the district, okay? You can feel free to do that. I don't think this policy is the intent.
We've done that
Okay.
already.
I think we should just take everything
Okay.
away like a little
Okay.
kid. You don't want to tell you.
Enough, one more, district phone, enough,
It's childish.
okay? Does anybody have anything else with regard to this particular policy?
I do. So I just wanted to point out that it says, at some point it says the automated notification system shall not be used for information that may be delivered through other district publications such as newsletters, posting on the district website, backpack distribution, published board minutes, and other staff parent, publications. So the minutes are always published. So anyone from the public can go back and read the minutes and find out, who voted what way. Why, after a year, almost a year, we're going over the same votes over, and it's so unprofessional to me, and this is just so out of control. It's so out of control. I stand behind this policy. I think what's going on with the all-call system is completely unprofessional, inappropriate, and, that's my thoughts on it. Anyone wants to vote no, yes, but I stand behind this policy. There are other ways to get communication out. There's a website. I don't think we do a newsletter. Years ago, we used to do a monthly newsletter. I don't think that's going on anymore.
Well, so I've been here quite a while, and when I first came as a parent and I was new to the district, the big complaint from parents was no communication. So for the past 3 years, what the previous board was trying to do was increase communication. And if you remember correctly, there was a newsletter because everybody complained about it because it was sent out on shiny glossy paper. So there was. I'm not opposed to a policy. I'm opposed to this. I don't like the verbiage and certain things. I feel it's restrictive. So I would like to table it, sit down with whoever, come up with an actual policy that we can vote on because we keep tossing this around.
But at what point is that really gonna go on? This has been going on since June. When are we gonna sit down and talk about it?
Well, we're gonna have a vote in about a minute. Mr. President, do you have a comment?
I do, and I recognize that a lot of policies are not perfect. Even recognize, Mr. President, what you and Jennifer had said, that it is not perfect. But in my opinion, it's a very important first step. And I'm all for enhancing it in 2021, but I am going to vote to implement it. This is the second reading. I am going to vote in favor of implementation. So now we would be prompted next year, rather than dragging this out, as Danielle has said, interminably, we will be prompted to do something and to improve it appropriately.
So if we pass the second reading, it doesn't necessarily mean that this is the policy, does it?
Yes, it does.
So
That's exactly what it means.
That's the problem. It's like nobody's understanding how you have to policy
So let's
procedure, how to get it passed. Is
Table
there a cost for the all-call, Mr. Capone?
But Danielle, if we table it, we're going to be talking about the same thing
No, because
this time next
nobody's
year.
taken ownership, because nobody has taken the changes and brought the changes to the table. That's the problem, is that we keep talking about it, but nobody's taking initiative to say, I'm gonna own this, I want this passed, I want this changed.
She
Last
did.
meeting,
She
said
did.
last
She
meeting,
did.
I was-
No, she did not.
You
Wait.
have
She did not.
Stop, please, please, stop. Danielle has been trying to get this passed. It went to the policy committee where it sat, no offense, Mr. Underwood, for probably longer than it should have, okay? I agree that the specific changes that we've discussed, nobody has taken pen to paper and made the changes. So that's.
It's easy to laugh, but we're trying to make an important decision here. And we all have the right to make an informed decision, so it's not funny to me, because the discussions that we had were not brought to the paper for me. And that's what Glenn is saying. So I'm sorry, I can't vote on something that hasn't been corrected.
Last meeting, I was told that the policy would be going to the attorney to review
Yes.
and make any changes. So I didn't make any changes because I'm waiting to hear what the attorney's gonna do. Now I have it in front of me. I just got handed it when the meeting started. I didn't get it any earlier to review.
And Danielle, if it's passed tonight on second reading, we should again send it to the attorney for his enhancement. And I will predict within the next 4 to 6 weeks, it will be enhanced. If we table it, it's not, we're gonna have the same discussion this time next year.
Okay, I agree. I'm just saying, Glenn just said if we pass this tonight, the second reading, it can't be enhanced at all.
Well, no, it becomes the policy
It's your policy.
until you enact a modified policy.
Okay, so we can. Okay.
Does anybody have any procedural questions? Okay. Is there any other discussion? Mr. Baumann?
Yes.
Mr. Brisbane?
Yes.
Ms. Caramucci?
No.
Ms. Christian?
Yes,
Mr. Underwood?
Yes.
And no. Okay, so that is now our policy. Item A2, is there a motion with regard to the agenda preparation, advance delivery of meeting material?
Yes, I make that motion.
Second.
Motion by Mr. Griswold, second by Mr. Bell. Is there any discussion? Just without going into any detail, please be mindful of the information that was given to us by our attorney before we came out here as you consider your vote. Any other comments or questions? Mr. Baumann?
Yes.
Mr. Brisbane?
Yes.
Ms. Caramucci?
No.
Ms. Christman?
Yes.
Mr. Underwood?
No.
And no. Motion does not carry. Motion with regard to A3, which is disposal of obsolete and or broken electronic equipment.
Motion.
Second.
Motion by Mr. Baumann, second by Ms. Caramucci.
Question I have under discussion, Mr. President.
Sir?
It's indicating this service is free of charge. Well, we paid, the taxpayers, I'm sure, paid dearly for these 70 Chromebooks, the 24 desktop PCs, I don't know about the monitor, but the hard drives, the 49 hard drives, and I don't understand why we're not, rather than not having to pay for a service, it's free of charge, why we're not being given some of that money back that can then go into the purchase of more Chromebooks and replacement hard drives.
And who disposes of electronic equipment and gives you money for it?
Have we looked into that?
Well, I mean, I haven't in this context, because that's above my pay grade, right? I'm just supposed to make sure we're fairly administered. However, I can tell you that in Port Jervis, there was a business called Advanced Recovery. And Advanced Recovery made their living by taking people's computers and other electronics. And you paid them for the privilege of dropping it there. Because the Orange County landfill, this is all New York, it's not New Jersey, and I'm not giving legal advice. But in that context, the Orange County landfill would not accept electronic device because of the stuff. So Advanced Recovery would, and I happen to know the owner, which is why I even know this, but basically they would pay somebody for their computer, they would then dismantle it, they'd file the different things in the different places, they would recycle what they could, they'd ship off or reuse what they could, and they would, I guess, melt down or sell for scrap. That's, the answer to your question is, you paid them to do it, not the other way around.
So Mark, do you have information?
I can only tell you, Paul, that the equipment is really of no value because it's obsolete computer equipment. And I know to the average person, you'll say, well, I had my laptop for 5 years or 10 years. The problem is when you have computers that are 8, 9 years old, you can't update them anymore. The operating systems can't be updated, so they become a security risk to the network. The Chromebooks are 5 years old, that's their end of life cycle, and a lot of them are damaged. You can't just give that to somebody to donate because all the information has to be cleared off them. There's secure data on there, there's confidential stuff on those. To have someone physically remove all that data, you're talking about 80 to 100 man hours, and then after you remove it, the devices are no good because there's no operating systems on it.
Well, Mark, what is Sycamore going to get out of this?
So what Sycamore does is they recycle and shred the hard drives, and you get a certificate of destruction, and whatever the metals are or whatever they can get because you have circuit boards, you have memory sticks, there's some things that are worth money out of the metal parts. So they recycle them, and that's where they get their money from. And they specifically work with education to do it for free, but other places you have to pay. We, in the private sector, I don't want to drag this on, my last job, we used a place in Franklin, and when we dispose of computers or servers, it costs us several thousands of dollars to get that equipment disposed of.
So in other words, you contracted with them.
Yes.
That's the contract.
I mean, Sycamore does, if you go to their website, they work with K through 12th grade schools. I worked with other IT coordinators throughout the New Jersey in education. I asked them who they use. This was recommended. I contacted them, and we've been using them for the last 2 years.
So what exactly is Sycamore International? Based on your knowledge of,
They're a recycling company
okay?
that specializes in working with hospitals, governments, education. They provide destruction of equipment. You get a certificate of destruction, which guarantees that information, they didn't hand your hard drive over to somebody else, it was shredded, and they give you an inventory of all the equipment with serial numbers that they destroyed.
And how confidential is the information on those hard drives, the 49 hard drives that we would be given to?
It could be teachers, like works from teachers, assignments, things of that nature. There's nothing from any servers that has any personal information on it, but it's all like, students' names on an assignment, stuff that's handed in.
Does it have social security numbers?
No.
It doesn't have to, it's protected under FERPA.
If you have a child's name, you can't have that publicized.
Right. We're required to destroy it. It's just not optional.
No, but I'm just concerned about Sycamore International. I guess my question is, are they a reputable company? Are they a company that's going to sell this information that's on these hard drives and make a profit for the sale of confidential information?
From the
And we find
research,
out later that's what they've done.
They work with schools, so,
from the research that I've done, Paul, they're a reputable company. I could only go online. I could talk to the reps. They have sales reps. They're a very large company, and a lot of school districts in New Jersey use the same company. That's where I got the name from.
So the source then of Sycamore International, you were the person to actually identify Sycamore
Yes.
for this particular
Yes.
purpose? Okay.
There's other companies we could use, but it might not be free. We'll have to pay to use it. There's one right in Franklin, New Jersey that I use in my past life, who does the same thing for hospitals, but they'll charge you for it.
Mark, thank you very much.
Okay.
Any other discussion or questions? Hearing none, Mr. Baumann.
Yes.
Mr. Brisbane.
Yes.
Ms. Caramucci.
yes.
Ms. Christman.
Yes.
Mr. Underwood.
Yes.
And yes. Entertain block vote items F1 to F15.
Motion.
Second,
Motion by Mr. Baumann, second by Mrs. Caramucci. Questions, Mr. Grizzly?
Yes, I just have a quick question, Mr. President, where it says, this is F12. It says, be resolved that the recommendation of the superintendent, Montague Board of Education approves CARES Act and elementary and secondary school emergency relief and accept the additional relief fund in the amount of $58.52. Can you provide an additional explanation of, is that earmarked specifically for some aspect of education within the school district?
It was an additional payment through that grant. They increased the amount to the school. That's our allotment.
And this would have come, I guess, from the federal government, ultimately?
That's through the CARES Act, yes.
And then on F14 is the reference of the recommendation of the superintendent, approve the student transportation contract, parental contract for student transportation, and the individual's name is listed, and Montague Board of Education, group number not to exceed 2003-19. It says an amount not to exceed. What would be the, if I might ask, what would be the calculation would determine whether it's more or, well, it can't exceed 2319. And how is that arrived at?
Well, the day it's mileage and B, it's number of days that they actually have to go there. And with COVID, we don't know what that number is, that's why it's not to exceed.
Okay. And the period of time, is that now through the end of the school year?
It'll be through June 30th.
Okay, good. Thank you.
Any other questions, comments, concerns, items F1 through F15? Hearing none, Mr. Baumann.
Yes.
Mr. Brisling.
Yes.
Ms. Carolucci.
Yes.
Ms. Christman.
Yes.
Mr. Underwood.
Yes.
And yes. Motion carries. Motion is carried. Next, we go to the addendum agenda. Items P1 through P5.
Motion.
Second.
Was the motion?
Danielle.
Or Jen? Sorry. So motion by Mrs. Caramucci, second by Mr. Balma. Any discussion? Hearing none, Mr. Balma.
Yes.
Mr. Brisling. Yes. Ms. Caramucci.
Yes.
Ms. Christman.
Yes.
Mr. Underwood.
Yes.
And yes. Motion's approved. I'm going to ask for a 5-minute recess before we go to the next public session, please.
I'll make it.
Second.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Thank you all. I'm so rude.
Oh, really? That's not a bad deal.
Absolutely not. So that's what I'm doing.
I'll probably put it there.
Okay.
Walked in, first thing I noticed, I was like, yeah, that's not what we need. It's very hard. It was a great year, that year.
Do I have to wait for 5 minutes? Okay, I'll entertain a motion to reopen regular session.
Motion.
Second.
All in favor? So just for purposes of the minutes, the break was from 8:41 to 8:45. Thank you. Public session. Public comment is invited on all matters pertaining to the school district. All participants shall be permitted 4 minutes to speak and shall state their name, place of residence, and group affiliation if appropriate. Board meetings are a meeting of the board conducted in public, not a meeting of the public conducted in the presence of the board. Board uses the public comment period as an opportunity to listen to citizen concerns, but please be aware that not all issues brought to a board meeting will be resolved this evening. Rather, the board will, in appropriate cases, delegate the authority to investigate the matter to the superintendent of police as needed. Please let the record reflect that the BOE does not endorse your comments, nor will the BOE be held liable for comments you make by a staff member or other person, which the staff member or other person may consider defamatory and or libelous, as that individual retains all rights to pursue any legal remedies against you. Entertain a motion to open public comment at 8:46 p.m.
Motion.
Second.
Motion by Mr. Ramos, second by Mrs. Caramucci. Any discussion? Hearing none, all in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries. Public comment, any comment? I'll take this opportunity to thank Mr. Underwood for stepping up, and also to Mr. Cooper. It's a pleasure serving with both of them during the course of their tenures. Look forward to working with the newly elected folks when we get sworn in, or when they get sworn in next week. And I will entertain a motion to close public comment at 8:47.
So moved.
Second.
Is that Mr. Brisley?
Mr. Bruno.
Motion by Mr. President, second by Ms. Caramucci. Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries. Unfinished business. First, I entertain a motion to acknowledge that the board goals and superintendent goals have all been completed. In fact, I'll make that motion. Motion by myself, second by Mr. Underwood. Any discussion?
Can you just repeat again what those four goals were for the 5 point?
Finalize the send receive process, providing choice for parents. Completed, finalize the reopening plan, finalize all contracts, and establish a communication committee.
Any other discussion, questions, comments? Hearing none. Mr. Baumann?
No.
Mr. Brisson?
No.
Ms. Caramucci?
Yes.
Ms. Crispin?
No.
Mr. Underwood? I'm going to vote no so that I can re-ask the question.
Again, I think this is one of those votes where how can you say you didn't complete these items?
These are the board goals that we as a board created and discussed. That's why I'm confused. Together as a whole, we came up with these goals.
What was the reopening plan? What did
What we're
that
doing
do?
now, virtual school, what the kids are doing right now,
That's the reopening plan?
The one that was put on the website in August,
in order for us
That's
to
correct.
open school.
that was the reopening. Still posted. Finalize all contracts. The last one was the VA contract. They're all complete. The union contract, VA contract, last thing.
Does anybody else not understand what we were voting on or what it was? Because then I'd remove to acknowledge the board goals and superintendent goals for all. So I'll make that motion again.
We have a discussion on it?
Sure, if we get a second on motion.
I'll second.
There you go, okay. So this time around it's me and then Jen. Okay, now, yes, discussion. please.
Finalizing the process with court service,
No, with the send receipt.
with the send, okay. With the send. So you're saying that we finalize all we can do and it's out of our hands?
Correct, with the commissioner.
Okay, finalize the reopening.
That was having a plan in place so that the students could return to the building or not, as the case might be. We had all those discussions over the summer because of COVID, and in August, we came up with a plan that, where ultimately it was largely virtual with some and then it became all virtual with some problems.
It was, and was required to be posted on the website by the state, which was why it made it.
Yeah, I'm still a little confused by that one.
So what's confused?
Okay, so we had voted that we were going to be, we went around the table and we had voted that we were going to be 100%, probably using the wrong term, 100% virtual. With the discussion of having some kids coming to do their learning in school, right? There was never a vote on that.
Doesn't have to be a vote, it just has to be completed. And it's the plan that is on, so.
We had that.
It's not the vote.
We had to have a plan. And we had a discussion because
So it's the plan, okay. All right, the third one, finalize the process.
Finalize all contracts. The last one to be voted on was the VA contract.
That's just the last one. Right, what was the fourth one?
Establish a communication committee.
What has the communication committee accomplished? I think it had one meeting.
Doesn't say that it accomplished anything, it was established. There was a board member in charge of it, they held a meeting. Again, committees are the responsibility of board members.
There was no board member. Who was the board member?
Charlie.
So there was one meeting with that. Right,
Now, when you have a committee, there's a head for the committee, and that's their responsibility, right?
No, that's the one that I disagree with. I don't think that was accomplished. I think it was just created for public relations purposes, but it wasn't really intended to accomplish it.
But all they had to do was establish it, according to the wording.
Correct.
They did that.
Okay, any other discussion?
As far as the,
As simple as it is, and it's you don't like the term.
But this is what you voted on, that's what
Just
the
because
frustration
they
is.
established, you didn't go into detail that they needed 12 meetings, 17, 18 meetings, what they didn't talk about. The goal was to get one established, and that's what it was.
We're not
If you
gonna
don't like the
ever move
language,
forward
that
if you're
should've been done-
questioning
that
the
should've
things
been
we've already
stopped
voted and
in
approved on and we've done, and then you're saying, well, how can we do this?
Okay.
That's not the way that we did it.
Okay.
I'm asking.
Please don't make me use the ballot again. Mr. Balance?
as far as the send receive
Yes, sir.
deal that we were working with there,
Yes.
what is set with the New Jersey schools for the children that want to send their children to Jersey schools?
The whole
Because there's
concept,
nothing set in stone yet on that, so it's really not completed then.
again, it was finalizing what was the exact word?
Finalize the send receive process, providing choice of parents. So you have
Analyze
meetings.
the process, not the agreement. The whole concept is that despite contrary opinions and.
So the goal is
The
just
whole idea
just
is-
get things going and don't do anything.
Say that again?
So the goals were all low bar, just get things going and don't do anything.
Yes, exactly.
Okay, Mr. Baumann, what would you like us to do with regard to the send receive aspect? Now, right now, today, what would you like us to do? We have submitted, we hired the professionals we needed, they did the studies they needed, they sent a full report to the commissioner's office, right? People responded to it, and then our attorneys, again, at our direction, filed our response, a response on behalf of the board to the commissioner. It is sitting somewhere in the commissioner's office. What more would you have this board do today without the permission of the commissioner to do something to the send receive? We stated our intention to terminate send receive with High Point, did that a long time ago, okay? We've made the application to the commissioner and we're waiting for a determination. That is finalizing the send receive process. Because once the commissioner issues his determination, we're either going to be negotiating a send receive with Port Jervis or a send receive with somebody in New Jersey. And we're also going to be negotiating, just so we're clear, with all of the other districts, any other districts that any kid wants to go to or any parent wants to send their kid to in the state of New Jersey. That's what this board has been working for the last, I don't know, two and a half years. Are there any other questions or
No, I
about?
thank you for explaining, because I feel like it was rushed and there was no good discussion, so I understand that.
Any other discussion about the motion? There's a motion and a second. All the vote. Mr. Bowman?
No,
Mr. President?
no,
Ms. Kristen?
Yes, it's.
I'm sorry. I couldn't hear you, but I went out of turn, and I apologize for that.
That's okay.
Ms. Camerucci?
Yes.
Sorry, yes. Ms. Kristen?
I'm changing mine to a yes.
Mr. Underwood?
Yes.
And then I will change mine to a yes, so now it passes. 4-2. Any other unfinished business? Any new business?
Yes, Mr. President, I have a motion that I would like to make relative to the executive session, that moving forward, each executive session for each subsequent meeting will be at the end of the meeting rather than at the beginning of the meeting.
Is there a second?
policy change.
Yeah.
Well, okay, it's policy change, so
I'm not gonna waste my time on a policy that people aren't gonna, that they're gonna play games with. So my motion stands. Obviously, I'm not gonna get a second, so the concept is dead.
I'll second Paul.
Thank you.
That's, you want to give that, please?
How about personnel?
Yeah.
Okay.
makes perfect sense. Well, I'm not, okay. Is there any other discussion? So my only observation is it's directly contrary to everything that was discussed about 3 hours ago. So that having been said, Mr. Bowman,
No,
Mr. Brisson,
Yes.
Ms. Camerucci.
No. No.
Okay. Ms. Christman, sorry. Ms. Christman, Mr. Underwood.
No.
And no. Motion fails. Any other new business?
I'd like to make a motion consistent with, I believe it was these November 9th minutes. And where we approved going out for quotes on, 3 quotes on the entire building. We have changed it the following meeting to 1/3 of the building. And my motion is that we obtain 3 quotes for the evaluation of the remaining 2/3 of the building as long as we do not exceed the bid threshold.
So you want to get 3 quotes for the whole building?
No, no.
As long as none of the quotes exceed the bid threshold?
For the remaining 2/3, we already at the last meeting, the 23rd meeting, we reduced it. Originally, we were going for 3/3 of the building. Then at the November 23rd meeting, we reduced it to 1/3 of the building. So my motion is for the 2/3 that are not covered, that we go out for 3 quotes to evaluate the remaining 2/3 of the building, because the intent, one of the intents, was not to exceed the bid threshold. So to get around that, this is the motion.
Thank you for clarifying, Mr. President. I did not understand that sort of survey. Now I do. There's a motion to get an estimate for evaluation of the remaining 2/3 of the building so long as the estimate would not exceed the bid threshold. Did I accurately state that?
Yes, sir, you did.
Okay, that's the motion. Is there a second?
I'll second and just have discussion.
Second by Mr. Bauer for purposes of discussion, if nothing more. Go ahead, sir.
I would think that we should probably just do the 1/3 that we're doing. We've already allotted the money for that. And then see how that comes back. And if it's, good, we don't have to do anything else, then don't test the rest.
Yeah.
That would be my thought on it. Like, we're already doing 1/3, so let's see how that comes back and see what is said from those findings.
Yeah, I mean, I would almost tend to agree with that. I think the analysis that I performed is a little different, but knowing what the worst 1/3 would require would give me some ideas whether I even want to look at the other 2/3 yet. Because it might be for budgetary reasons that we want to do 1/3, 1/3, 1/3. I don't know. But for sure, with all due respect to the motion, I don't believe that we would get such an estimate under the bid threshold, which was the reason why we pulled it, or one of the reasons we pulled it in the first place. Is there any other discussion?
Yeah, I guess again, what is the long-term plan here? Okay, if we get a report, right? The determining factor on a 7-0 vote was not to upgrade the filtration system. Right, that was unanimous, it's not doing that. Then we came back and said, we're gonna do some testing. So what's gonna be the metric that we're looking at as far as the filtration system? Because we already had a ballpark number of what it was gonna take to do the entire building, which was the AC, which was the upgrade that had previously been planned as part of this. That was not COVID related. The security measure, which again was not COVID related. Okay, and now we were just talking about adding in the filtration system. So you had already set monies aside. You then determined unanimously not to move forward. So now that was September, if you remember. Now we have mid-January, 1/3 of the building that's going to be tested. What's the goal here? If this comes back and we need to do an upgrade, are we looking at MERV 13? Is that the goal here? We have an idea of what it is that we're trying to accomplish, because I would agree that if we're going to go out and spend money on testing, okay, and that testing we know is going to be in the $40,000, $50,000 range altogether, then from that, what's the intended outcome that we're shooting for? Because we already went through this process. We talked about, here's the scope, we had the architects sit down and say, this is our recommendations. They put time and effort into doing that, and then it was determined not to.
I mean, candidly, from my position, once we have the 1/3 and we have more information, I may very well renew the motion to do the whole building, because I know we have the money to do that, and if that's going to satisfy it. But I think, at least in part of the discussion was not knowing what exactly the standard that even the state was going to be requiring at that time. Hopefully, with this evaluation in January, we'll have more information.
Okay,
I mean, that's Glenn's position. I can't speak for anybody else.
well, Mr. President, I'm going to withdraw the motion.
Okay. Any other new business?
Do we need to make a motion to have the attorney on the phone at our reorg meeting? Is that something that would be new business?
I don't think we actually need to make a motion for that. All I have to do is send him a text. And I will have him on standby. I'm not gonna even try to reach out to him unless we need him. But I'll have him, he will know that if my name pops up on his phone, it means we need him.
And then isn't there something that we need to address as far as the meal program? That needs to be.
This isn't new business.
Yes.
Well, Tim, you said that there was that you learned of a problem.
the New Jersey Department of Agriculture came back and said that you cannot deliver to some families and not to others. So you either have to do full delivery or full grab and go. We know that grab and go, the way that it was, the way that it's moved forward, like I said, we had 27 pickup last time, 13 before that. As far as total number of students, we were almost at 50, within 50 when we were doing full delivery just for free and reduced. So our number has been cut from almost 50 to half of that or a quarter of that under the current program.
Currently, is it just grab and go?
It is.
Is it available to all of our students?
Correct.
So basically, the issue is we either have to deliver to all of our students, not just the.
Yeah, because the last meeting you said that we were gonna reinstate the delivery program, we were gonna hire a part-time person in order to do that. But now.
But only for the free and reduced.
Well, only for the free and reduced, correct? So now we're
Now we
presented
can't
with
do
this
that.
problem, correct? So we need to address this.
So are you delivering to all students? Or are you grab and go for all students?
And if we deliver to all students, we don't even have staff for that.
We have bus drivers and
I'm gonna discourage you from throwing out names of other positions that you think can be assigned to other jobs.
How many people, were we delivering to before the grab and go?
There's 50 free and reduced families.
So 50 free and reduced families, and the grab and go program has how many?
The last two pickups were 27 and 13.
That's because it was only.
And there's no way to distinguish of those 27, 13, who are the free and reduced and who are others.
That number, free and reduced, dropped drastically that we can talk about.
Because
Once
they
we
can't
stop
get
delivering.
So in other districts, they're not doing both?
So the comparison to other districts around here, I continue to remind people that, if they have a free and reduced population of 2% or 5% or 10%, some of these districts have two families, okay, that are actually coming and picking up this food. Okay, with our poverty rate at 50%, okay, is logistically different. Also, as I laid out to Representative Gottheimer, there's a difference between someone that has a full kitchen with a full staff, someone that has contracted food services, and someone that has in-house the way that we do and purchase meals. Three very distinct, very different circumstances. I know that, Ms. Crispin, you talked about us having our own kitchen. Okay, again, that's something that would have to be put in the long-term facility plan. And again, if the majority of the board wants us to start pursuing that, we should start taking action now if that's something that we're looking at for the start of next year. That again would change our circumstance when you're talking about what we offer, how we offer it, and where we're purchasing those foods from. It's been something that's been discussed, a couple times here and there. But again, as far as direction from the board, there haven't been 4 votes of saying, let's pursue this and let's put this in the long-range facility plan. Again, we don't have a strategic plan right now because we accomplished everything that was on there and you haven't added anything else in. So that's where we are.
So could I ask, because information, like, to a certain degree, I try to at least be somewhat responsible, try to be a numbers guy. So would it be possible to determine what the approximate cost would be for us to deliver to everybody? Because clearly, with all due respect, right, the grab and go ain't working. If we were delivering to 57, and now we're only having
A 13 pickup.
13 pick up, or even 27 pick up, grab and go is not working. It's not providing to the families who really need it. I mean, it may be, we don't know, right? Because we don't know the
Well, the
exact
numbers are
breakdown.
still, but the numbers are still way down from what they were.
No
Correct. So
doubt,
it's not-
right? So, but what I'm thinking is that on one hand, I'd love to say, let's deliver to everybody. But I can't responsibly do that without knowing how many or what additional cost, I mean, there are additional costs that are gonna be incurred, gas, insurance, and then is it additional personnel, can we do it with the
But if
people
we're
we have?
losing money
And
by
none of
meals-
that is for us to try to figure out. So I'm asking, is that information that, you know, you could outline or potentially predict?
So again, when we're looking at the number of free and reduced families that we have, okay, the delivery was only with less than 50%. Because the other ones were choosing not to accept. Okay, when we set that up in the spring though, we were able to figure out here are the families, right? These are the ones that are gonna be accepting. So we took a loss early on. Okay, you take a little bit of a loss as we move forward because not everybody's home or they, you know, over a period of time they deny. The move here is if we're looking at now you have 250 families. Okay, which is 5 times the amount that we ever delivered. It's finding out which ones are going to do that, okay, and which ones are going to accept. And then from there, identifying what's the number of meals on a regular basis. Because that's where you run into the problem in the loss. Okay, when you had roughly 46, then you had a little bit of overage and you were able to deal with that. If you're increasing 5-fold, from that 5-fold, then we have to identify, again, we have to go back and say, who is it? How many are going to be accepting? From there, what's the delivery pattern schedule all the way through? I would think that we would be able to have better management of that based on saying, after a week, we know who's in, who's out, okay, and developing patterns of delivery, which more resembles what we did with the free and reduced meals, which again, I think was a better system to start with.
So would it be possible for us to ask you to start that process, get some numbers, give us some figures so we can decide what we want to do? Or is it just?
I guess here's where we are now. You've approved a second position, right? From that second position, if we're talking about full-time delivery for all of these families as far as what we're, and how we're going to address it. Now you're saying, all you have to do is make the motion and make the determination of that we're going to deliver to all families. I don't know what that number is going to be. I don't know how
But
to
at
predict
this
that.
point, is it all families that opt in? It's not just all families.
Correct.
There's gotta be a way that you reach out to everybody, find out who wants it.
Correct.
And then that way we can manage it better. We're not losing money on meals we purchased that aren't being picked up
You're still,
Not
you're,
as much.
as much. You're still losing, but we're not losing as much as we're losing right now.
right. But my point would be this, if we had roughly 125 families, okay, and 50 were opting in as far as free and reduced, and the other 70 something were choosing not to, okay? Of the additional families there, which is again roughly 125, how many are gonna opt in, and then what our delivery is there, okay?
I'm just trying to understand, I mean, I hear what you're saying. Do you think that the one additional staff person would be sufficient?
Yes,
Okay, so what do we do to bring
So
this
then
up?
really it's
you're saying that we're gonna deliver all of our,
So
we're going
All right.
I'm going to make a motion that we are going to deliver all of our meals, and the grab and go program is no longer, and it becomes delivery for all students who opt into that program.
I'm seconding
Wait, So there's no more grab.
The grab and go isn't working, people aren't coming, and the free and reduced aren't getting it, so we can't have it both ways. So if we go to where we poll all of the students, we find out who wants their meals, everybody will get meals delivered, but it would be better management because we'll know how many families there are, where they're going, who's delivering them, and you're reducing your loss of,
It'll be offered to all
So there's
families,
still
but they have to opt
grab and
in.
go, it's gonna be delivered.
but grab and go is grab and go.
It's not grab and go.
It's not grab and go. The verbiage.
You will get a
is
call,
very
as a
important.
parent of the student in the district, you will get a call that says, we're going to be providing lunches or meals. I assume they're lunches. Are you interested in receiving them? Yes. Okay, how many children? 3. Thank you very much. And then within an abbreviated period of time, at a certain time, every day or once a week or whatever, however it's gonna work, and that's above my pay grade, I don't care. But they're gonna come, they're gonna show up at your house, and they're gonna say, here's your food. If there's nobody to get it, we're gonna pay for that food even though you didn't get it. And if they come to your house and you're home and you say, you know what, I don't want it this week, we're gonna pay for that food even though you didn't take it. That's where the loss comes in. But by contacting all of the parents who have kids in the district, we can at least come up with a ballpark number of those that are gonna at least initially say, yep, I'm in, I want it. And hopefully the number will be substantially, frankly,
in the
hopefully the
beginning,
number will be
when-
substantially higher than the 57 that was just the free and reduced lunch book when we started.
My concern when this whole process started was that, and the newspaper quoted me differently, but my concern was that the free and reduced, the kids that needed it. My concern was to make sure that they continued to get it. What happened with our program is those kids that really needed it weren't getting it, right? But the grab and go. And in the beginning, the grab and go was like 80 people, right? 80 families or whatever it was, 80 kids. We're down 1 week. First week, it's new, right? This week, we were down to 13. And those 50 some of the free and reduced who really need it aren't getting it. Grab and go means grab and go. Delivery is delivery. So you have to be very careful with certain things because grab and go wasn't the delivery.
And apparently we can't do both.
And
That's the
apparently we
problem.
can't do both because last minute we approved to bring back the delivery, but now we can't.
Who said we can't do both?
Through the Department of Agriculture. So, and again, I think that again, if we're looking at this system, the grab and go is more passive. It's reliant on the parents or guardians to be able to come and get here, where again, we were more aggressive in being able to provide that because we were able to set up times, set up dates, and then it became a regular schedule as far as who was provided. That's why we were much more consistent and able to manage those number of meals significantly better, okay, than having a swing from 87 meals here and 13 meals.
Because we pay for those meals regardless. So that's how you lose money. Because even though people say it's free, not really free, which is what Mr. Capone said in the beginning, was that we're gonna take a big hit. So if we can try to just minimize the amount of food that's being not used, but bigger than that, is getting to the families that, not that any family doesn't need it, but those 50 some students that were getting it delivered clearly aren't still getting it.
Any other discussion or questions? Seeing none, Mr. Baumann.
Yes.
Mr. Briston.
Yes.
Ms. Carucci.
Yes.
Ms. Christmas.
I'm gonna abstain just because I'm not sure that I quite understand, so I'm gonna say.
Mr. Underwood. That is very good. Okay, yes. So it's five yes, 1 abstain. Any other new business?
Well, just a clarification question, we're still gonna get the correspondence from Mr. Capone, correct?
Yes.
Good.
Yes, from the Department of Agriculture.
Okay, just wanna make sure.
There was no mention of not giving you, it's not a quid pro quo.
Okay.
We don't agree to this and then you don't get the way.
Okay, so
Any other new
Yes,
business?
other new business, since we now have adopted this policy as far as, communications.
Right, how are we gonna
Yeah,
notify
I'd
everybody?
like to, look into changing some of this so that we can include PTA events and other events, and I'd like to change the wording. So,
Well, and clearly,
that's
I
what we're
can't use
saying,
the
as long
all-call
as it has to
system
be
for
adopted, we
meals.
can do. So wait, as of right now, you can't even do an all-call for meals?
Absolutely not according to your policy.
When we discuss,
It's Danielle.
everything comes, here's the thing, there's no discussion up front. Everything comes back to you after a vote, well, you did this, so now this.
That's what wait, I'm so confused, we just
I'm so
discussed it.
confused.
It said we had to pass it in order to change it. So that's what I'm trying to do now, but I clearly said I wasn't gonna vote on it the way it was, which I did. Now it's passed, now I wanna change it.
I don't understand what's so funny, okay, so we
You
passed
passed
it,
a
now
policy
that's
that
funny, now
I
that's
cannot
not funny, but there's
use
nothing
it
though, I'm sorry.
There was laughing from the audience before. I don't find any of this funny because this is communication. This is the utmost importance for the
You're
parent.
absolutely right.
So that's why I was trying to table it so that we could maneuver it better, but that wasn't the vote. I'm not laughing, I'm frustrated. I'm just as frustrated as you are. I get it, we all want the same goal here, but let's make it a realistic one.
I feel like there's like minimal information given, and then you make a vote, and then it's like, oh, well, you did this, so now this.
Okay, and I feel like you don't understand the process, so you're not making accurate votes, because if we had tabled it, we could have come together and created a separate way. Now you just pass something and
You
give,
modify, right?
that's what I'm trying to do now.
Okay, great.
Two more readings.
Yeah, we can't, look, we can't make it effective for this evening.
No, I understand that.
Right, so.
But I want everybody, because we're all frustrated, I want everybody to be on the same page, so the frustration stops and we can all work together. That's the goal.
I'd like to, we have a first reading this evening.
No, because I'm not prepared.
Yeah, we need,
No, I
what we
need
really
time to
need
go
to do,
through
this is, I'm gonna suggest,
Sure.
I will try to develop language for the next meeting, for a first reading, just so we're clear. My interpretation of this policy is, it says, and I know it wasn't your intention. Please don't react
Not
bad.
personal.
Right? This policy says essentially no all call except for emergency. Okay? I'm going to try to do it so that it does it the other way, which says you can do all call for everything except.
I like that idea.
Well, that's what I was trying to say before.
Okay, stop. It is, but as you said, there was a lot of talking over one another, there was a lot of confusion. And at this point, you need to modify this, because clearly, we understand what members of the board and public didn't like the old call being used for. But because, and again, this is, I get this, the sample policy from School Boards Association, so it's not like you came up with this all on your own. But the way that this is, you can't do anything except, and what I'm saying is we should adopt a policy that says you can do everything except. Because there's nobody in this room, including the two newly elected board members, there's nobody in this room who's going to be able to identify every circumstance where the all call is going to be desirable. It's impossible. And that was my objection, and I verbalized it before we voted. That's why I voted no to this policy. Because there were too many things that we would want to use it for that this policy says no. So, but to try to get it moving, and the call center would be happening in 4 to 6 weeks, so I'm gonna try and make it happen faster. But I'll try to revise, create essentially a revised policy that says all call can be used for everything except. And then we just have to come up with the except. I think coming up with the, you can't use it for this, it's gonna be a whole lot easier than coming up with, you can use it for this. That's my sense. I really think that that's the way. So, but in an effort to get it going, I will do that. Now, that having been said, still, and again, I think it's above my pay grade to tell Mr. Capone how to get the word out to the families that they're eligible for this food service and who they want to participate.
And the website and all these other things, that's great, but not reaching everybody. You all call reaches every student.
I think ultimately, you're still gonna have to call every parent.
You already did, like, you did with health care, you don't need all call for that.
Well, I think that there's another point though that you should make, which is you're saying that you don't have enough information. Okay, so that's something that I continue to say, that if you have questions, you need to ask ahead of time. But I don't get questions as far as clarifications until we come to the meeting. In addition to that, the follow-up as far as understanding certain aspects, okay, there haven't been any ideas, there haven't been any of these conversations. okay? And really, the only conversations that have occurred is when I sought you out. Not that you sought out information or looked for clarification or tried to understand how things happen and why. And so what that leads us to is when we're talking about, again, whether you want to talk about food service or you want to talk about any of the other votes, certainly that you think I'm critical of, which is fair, okay? Because you're not understanding what the implications are, because you don't ask questions or don't understand how those pieces are. That's where we run into issues. That's where we run into all of the things that I've harped on. Okay, so this
Shouldn't it be a discussion among the board that they're why is it
This
always?
has been since June, you said it yourself, this has been since June.
because here's the problem, okay?
There shouldn't have been any questions or concerns or even any additions, it should have just been done.
You continue to have conversations about, and I keep going back to this, right? And again, you think I'm beating a dead horse. I know I am, okay? Your jobs are policy, passing a budget, setting goals, and measuring goals, okay? The policy has been, I've sat at this table more times than I'd like and say that I should be creating the policies. It's not my job, okay? This is supposed to be reflective of what are the operational procedures, okay? Not micromanagement, and there's a big difference there. And Kathy Hello has been here and talked about 30,000 feet. That's what your job is, okay? That you give me, here are the things you want to accomplish, right? What do we have to accomplish right now? What are the things that have been identified by the 7 of you, okay, that we want to accomplish? Therein lies the problem. So again, I think the kitchen's a great idea. I really do. I think that that's something that provides us greater flexibility. I think it gives us more choice for our students. There's a lot of really positive things that can come out of it, okay? You brought it up, and we've sat here at this table, and there's no movement, right? There's no movement. The movement has to be that you decide this is something we want to do. That's how that operates. Okay, what are the things you want to accomplish? Then I tell you, that's what my job is. My job is to tell you, this is how we go about accomplishing. And I've reiterated, in 3 years, we've accomplished every goal of that. What the board set out for 5 years, we accomplished. All of the things that they want. We have a long-range facility plan that still has items on it. Okay? The cafeteria is a great one as far as an expansion, but there has to be a larger picture as far as what are the needs here. We don't meet the requirements from the state as far as square footage within this building. Okay, and addition is something that we should be looking at as far as meeting thorough and efficient education. Okay, a cafeteria, auditorium, that's been something that's been discussed as far as something that could occur. But we're bogged down in things that, again, are micromanagement. And I don't think that I don't understand that you don't like me revisiting things. Okay, I'm looking at this and I'm going to, from my perspective, I'm saying, the state's saying, and it's not efficient for a board not to pass the budget, right? And the things that I've harped on are things that can't happen. They're not efficient. They're not productive. They're not leading to good things for the district and for the community, and most importantly for our students about what it is that we're providing. Okay. But again, what have the 7 of you agreed on, or at least 4 of you agreed upon, as far as this is something that we're going to accomplish? I thought the HVAC system was something that we were going to be moving forward. You have the money, it meets the security need, it meets the air conditioning need, it meets the filtration need of improving. Okay, because they explained to you, you can't get higher than what it is that they offered to you. This is the best you could get based on the structural systems here, based on the rooftops used. Like we've gone through all that. And then if we're going to look at it and say, if we want something more, now you're talking about major renovations, because the building, the structural load here can't handle it. So we can either do, this is as good as we can get under those circumstances, and the choice was not to. So, I reach a point where I'm saying, now what? What do you want to accomplish? If that's a priority, then we should be sitting down and saying, okay, here's 4 votes that we want to start speccing this out and put that in the long-range facility plan. So that's something we can get accomplished. The impact then address, again, the flexibility of the food, the selection that we then control as opposed to purchasing in other places. But we get caught up in all of this, kind of fake cycle as far as what those things are. And I sit here and I say, the staff is saying they only gave out blueberry yogurt, right? That's dated 2021. And I have somebody in the community saying, I have a raspberry yogurt that was dated the 14th. But they only gave out blueberry. There's no point to that conversation. I mean, we can sit here and talk about when is milk expired. Because it's not an expired date, right? That's not actually what that date is. It's best by. Okay, we've never handed out milk that is past the best by date. Okay, is it within the week? Sure it is. We gave out extra milks to people because we had surplus, and instead of just throwing them out, okay, we were trying to put more food into the community. We got complaints about that. Look at all the milk. We can't drink the milk and it's going to be expired. So what's the purpose of what it is that we're doing? Think about the amount of time that we've spent on this, okay, with what being the outcome. There's an important outcome. Having a cafeteria is an important outcome. If we had 4 people that could get on board with that, that's something that we could do. But again, I don't know that we want to do that in isolation. The same way that when we were looking at this and saying the board wanted to complete the AC due to the security issue, due to the air conditioning components to get rid of all these units, okay, and the filtration. That's a 3-for-1. We were able to combine all of that into a single project. I believe that the same is true for the cafeteria. If you're just going to put money into a kitchen, then we're still looking at what that space is. It doesn't address a number of the other issues. We could sit there and we could be saying that we're addressing the thorough and efficient, square footage that we need. You could be adding that on. You could have a kitchen. You could provide that flexibility. Check off 3 or 4 boxes as we go through. That would be something that's worthwhile for the board to be discussing. It would be. But are 4 of you interested in doing that? I have no idea. Do we have any long-term goals? No. That's what a board of ed is supposed to be discussing. It's not supposed to be the minutia of, each one of these items or what's the process or even, we had the meeting hijacked as far as vendors. Okay, that's not your job. That's not your job.
Is Kathy coming here at the first meeting in January?
No, Kathy's scheduled for the 25th of January.
Okay. So no later than at that meeting, remember that you want to ask about cafeteria. Because that's one of the things that she'll talk with us about, long-range plans and stuff like that.
But that's not where it starts. If you have something you want to talk about, it's with me. You don't, the problem is if we're showing up once every 2 weeks and saying, well, I read my board packet, or I didn't read my board packet, or, yeah, I can understand where that's overwhelming. Okay? But that's not really the purpose. The purpose is, again, the big picture goals of what you want to accomplish. In doing that, then it's my responsibility to build the plan to accomplish what any 4 of you want. These aren't, we've had this and reiterated this over and over again. These aren't my plans. These are your plans. My job is to execute.
It is 9:33 on December 28th. So I will entertain a motion to adjourn and wish everyone a happy new year. Second, Mr. Underwood, thank you again for your service. You made the motion, seconded by Mr. Baumann. Again, it's 9:33. All in favor?
Aye.
Have a very, very safe new year. Try to stay healthy. And I'll see you all in January.
Okay, yeah.
Will you take this down?
I just want to